Welcome back, and today we have an offer. 10% off V3 Hopium sales. Let's get into this one. V3 versus Rascal Jesters, which, again, and I feel like I've said this a few times, today, and it's been pretty true. Had we been last split, end of the season, no questions asked about this game, but on recent form, there are some questions to be asked. V3 are starting to put up a bit of a challenge for some teams, and Rascal Jesters are finding a lot of these teams quite challenging. There is potential, and I feel crazy for saying this, and this is actually less opium than when some of the jokes I made last time we were on stream, but I actually feel like there is a potential that Rascal Jesters could lose to V3 today. Like, RMC, am I fully insane, or is this actually true?
No, I'm with you. If we actually... Okay, V3 is 0-3, this split. But if you actually look at the games they've been playing, the game against Axis and the game against... CGA, pardon me, just on Wednesday, they were actually winning right up to the moment they lost. Like, there's just one big fight that V3 loses, but everything before that looks really, really good. And even in spring, V3's early game was actually getting consistently better as the split went on. So V3 is improving. It's slow, but it's steady. So eventually, I do expect them to pick up some wins. The big problem to me for today is Rascal Jesters, because they're 1-2, and the ways they have lost is... My goodness, Jero Middlecott. Like, the Rascal Jesters apparently don't know what mid game is anymore. This is their meta, and somehow by the time they reach the late game, they are so far behind that all the team fighting the world can't save them. Yeah,
you say slow and steady, but it doesn't seem to win the race in the LJL, because Rascal Jesters have the longest average game time, yet are not 3-0. So, Middlecott, how are you feeling about this one? Do you expect a long game, or actually are we going to see Rascal Jesters, maybe turn up the heat a little bit?
I do not know what to expect, if I'm perfectly honest,
That is fair, yeah.
You've brought me on here to analyse this game on the desk, but fundamentally, whatever we're going to see on the Rift today is going to be something.
Yes.
Sort of digress a bit. Whilst Rascal Jester haven't had the greatest start to the split, the quality is still there. Soul and Secret are still very good players. Recap is still a pretty decent mid laner. Hatcher, Metcher. I know these aren't bad players, but just something isn't working right now. The thing for me in this matchup against V3 is a lot of what we saw last split is V3 kind of getting lane diffed. We've seen that a lot less actually, and with the strength that they've had in the early stages and with Rascal Jester's poor mid game, I don't want to say it, but I am. I think there's a good 25 minutes of this game where, independent of draft, V3 are the team that seem a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and that's crazy. It's crazy to think that. But I will say, we have to look at some things. And I will say, I really want to see the Swain again. I think Yujo was an outstanding performer on the Swain. RMC, do you feel like it's probably going to get banned? Or do you think actually, you know what, maybe there's a chance that it gets left open? Because there are still a lot of good picks that need to be taken away.
Gonna be honest, Jero, when I watched that Swain pick for Yujo, it looked great, but it also looked like CJ just had no clue what on earth the champion did. So part of me feels like Rascal Jesters might also not have played against the Swain, in which case I wouldn't be surprised if it does get left open. There are ways to counter it, and so if you're an organized team, I think it is something that you can leave up and open. It just comes down to how familiar Rascal Jester is with that particular pick.
And I will say one thing that V3 really impressed me with last game day 3 is that they actually felt like they were a little bit more up to date with the meta. We've said that they've sometimes felt a little bit in the past. They've kind of modernized their drafts a little bit better, and it does give me some hope that maybe they are going to pick a pretty good comp. Rascal Jesters, Middlecott, we've said this is like their meta, but it feels like they're not really living in it, and I'm not really sure why. But do you feel like this is the classic Rascal Jesters of last split, have a really bad round 1, and they basically come through round 2, 3?
I mean, we have seen it before, and they are a slower team in every aspect to a certain extent. So I think that there aren't going to be massive alarm bells ringing yet. I think that really for this entire first round robin, it's just about getting back into the swing of things, getting back playing comp, playing in a bit more focused style. I think that if we are seeing similar performances from them in the second round robin, and their chances of actually making it into the sort of top 3 of playoffs look a little bit shaky, I think that's where you need to be worried if you are a Rascal Jester fan.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we'll have to see if V3 continue their streak, or if it is going to break today against opponents we wouldn't necessarily expect to be saying this about. You know, we've always talked about Axis being the big win condition. Potentially CJ on a bad day, potentially Burning Core on a bad day as well. Maybe even the Hawks on a bad day. But either way, we'll see if Rascal Jesters are the ones that do find their downfall against V3. We're going to be jumping into draft though. So middle court, RMC, take us through the final game.
Hey, let's get into it. V3 here on the blue side. Rascal Jesters on the red, as Gabriel just said. V3 looking to end their 24-game loss streak. You really don't want to make a quarter century of L's. And with Rascal Jesters looking shaky, maybe they've got a chance to do it.
Yeah, and for V3, I do feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has really stepped up this particular split here. Where I wouldn't be surprised if we see triple bans targeted, because the Corki and the Swain were two big reasons why V3 even got close to winning their games here. On the other hand, Rascal Jesters, well, I think Soul and Secret need to step up a little bit more. They've done decently, but it's not been that big carry performance we're used to seeing from them in the spring.
I mean, even in their one win this split versus the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks on game 1, it was looking a lot closer than it should have been, and that's because Sol was overstepping in a comp that had a lot of protective tools, and he was still managing to find himself get caught out by Dash's Lissandra, and the follow-up was coming through from the rest of the Hawks. They were eventually able to win that game, but not as clean as you would have liked. V3 targeting a couple of AD carries in their bans, one of the more utility-focused ones in the Callista and the Senna. Renata also taken off the board. That Corki, like you talked about, taken off the table, as is Zeri Wukong. Again, you've got a Lucian available on blue side if V3 want to take it.
Now the question is dress code specifically for V3, because while we weren't particularly impressed with dress code in spring, I do think he's leveled up quite a bit and hasn't been a liability at all so far in their first 3 games of summer. However, I don't know if that means he's picked up Lucian, and my bigger concern right now is, yep, they picked the Viego, which is the only champion Unica has played so far, by the way. He's only played 1 champion, but this means that Lucian Nami is open for Rascal Jesters.
And I mean, Soul and Secret, we talk about them having an insane amount of synergy. I can imagine that playing a duo like that Lucian Nami in the bot lane would make a lot of sense. We're actually going to be getting Lucian Volibear as the rotation, the Lolbear making his return to the Rift.
Okay, yeah, Volibear has been coming back into meta a little bit more. I mean, strong early ganks, but specifically for Hashimecha. This was Hashimecha's most played champion in spring, and his pathing on the Volibear has always been very good. It's one of the junglers where he has a bit more early game impact as well. You pair that with the thought of Lucian Nami, and suddenly Rascal Jesters, we talked about them as a late game team, but they might be going for an early game adaptation, and given their struggles, I like the idea of that change.
We saw Lucian versus Aphelios in our last game, RMC, and it did not go well for the Aphelios. We'll have to see how much dress code has actually leveled up, as he's going to be piloting the Aphelios. Important to note that Aphelios Nautilus was the duo that Yuhi and Loser used to take down Soul and Secret, but it was also the duo that got kind of booty blasted by the Lucian Nami last game.
Yeah, and when you take the Aphelios Nautilus, the idea into the matchup is basically Aphelios needs to land the hook, basically. You follow up, either with red-white or with Gravitum to run people down. But we saw that if you miss that hook, or if you're not landing it on the priority targets, you just get run down by Lucian Nami, and you will, as you so eloquently put it there, middle court, will get booty blasted.
We did see that Nami locked in, so completing that bot lane combo. Rascal Jester throwing their first ban of the second phase at that Swain. I really, really like this. Ayujo looked great on it, and when you've got kind of shorter range carries in this Lucian, the Volibear, also not a champion that deals with long range champions too well, having someone that can just stand in your front lane and heal up infinitely sounds bad. So take that off the table, makes a lot of sense. Ornn also removed a pick that I know showed some pretty good stuff on.
Yeah, and to me, the Ornn kind of feels like just generally we want to remove scaling style of idea. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Kale ban come through as well, because as we said, Rascal Jesters right now looking kind of early game focused. And knowing Rascal Jesters, I'd be surprised if they fully index into that early game. So scaling is probably what you want to move off the table. And in terms of mid lanes as well, Recap hasn't been the most standout mid laner right now. I think I know scaling is probably a slightly higher worry, as he has the highest kill participation of all players in the LJL currently.
And that's pretty impressive stuff, but when your team's 1 and 2, that kind of implies that maybe the rest of the map isn't doing as much as you'd like it to. I think Recap can opt to something like an Azir, something nice and long range that does provide a lot of scaling. Victor fulfills a similar role.
I don't think Recap's actually played Azir, and I don't think Azir has been banned against Rascal Jester, so I'm a bit surprised at the Azir ban. Maybe something in scrims that the teams are aware of here. I think Victor, like you said, not as long range as the Azir, but really fits the RJ composition incredibly well here. The only thing that would potentially mess him up is if V3 drops some disengage, and so far, I don't... mid lane disengage? I don't know really what options you have left here.
I mean, Galio, potentially. EUGO, big fan of that, and it does provide some tools that can really disrupt champions that do want to dive in. The Gnar pick here for Washidai, I'm pretty sure that's just, I don't know what I'm going to be playing against, so I'll play Gnar. Actually going to be the Zoe locked in for EUGO, which kind of adds a bit of a different flavor to this composition.
Yeah, Udre has played it once already this split into Axis. It wasn't bad by any means, but I don't feel like it quite had the same impact as Corki or Swain. Now, into the draft that Rascal Jesters have, if you can land it on a priority target, meaning Victor, Nami, or Lucian, it's perfectly fine. But into the Volibear can tank that up a little bit, and Rascal Jesters are going to be looking to push into V3, and Zoe actually does not do terribly well against aggressive compositions. It does best into compositions where you can kind of take your space, space it out, get that poke down, and look for individual picks instead.
Yeah, and the champions that you've got alongside you don't really offer a lot of that disengage, like you already touched on. Aphelios, Nautilus, great at starting fights. Love starting fights. Hate already being in the middle of them, and whilst there is some kite back potential, it's not really as strong as you would like. Rascal Jester completed their draft with this Gangplank lock-in, so a lot of early game strength in that bottom lane, and then both solo laners providing a bit more of a scaling threat.
Exactly. We're talking about the kill, but GP is my personal favorite. Honestly, I still prefer it even over that kill. While kill has great team fight, GP has just better setup and poke. And, we're touching on that Zoe. Zoe wants to poke, so does GP, and GP can hit more people at the same time. It's better engage and disengage with that cannon barrage as well. So I think Rascal Jesters have drafted everything they've wanted. And to be honest, I really like the draft. I think they've got better early game tools. They've got that same late game skilling option that they always seem to like to play into.
Yeah. And it is a little bit of a switch up, because it is Soul and Secret who are actually the ones that are going to need to achieve some of this agency in the early game. But whilst I think Dresscode and Hetel haven't been as bad as they were last split, there's still a big differential between these two V2s.
Oh, as bad. Oh God, I feel like they've actually been doing pretty well. Like, I remember last year.
Hold on. RMC, I'll stop you there, okay? LJL, known for good AD carries. Whilst Dresscode may be top 3 in CBLOL or something, or whatever it is that you got, in here, in Japan, is not quite in that upper echelon. I'm sorry, man. We'll leave that for a little bit, as we're now on to the riff of V3 versus Rascal Jester. Oh.
Middlecott, I'll excuse you for not understanding CBLOL, because obviously you're not a connoisseur. The AD carries there are not the problem. I'm not saying CBLOL is perfect, but it wasn't the fault of the AD carries. And Dresscode, I remember last split, Dresscode was struggling immensely. In terms of AD carries, was near the bottom, if not the bottom here. And I think this split, Dresscode's actually been doing pretty decently. He's not bottomed the barrel here, and actually has been pretty instrumental in V3's successes thus far. Sure, he's not standing out the way, Hybrid does for CGA, but, yeah, considering that V3 struggled immensely in spring, massive improvement already. I don't think they're going to get booty blasted, as you so put it here. They just have to play it a little bit safer, and given how Hetel and Just Code have played here, I think playing safe is sort of one of their default modes at this point.
Yeah, we did see a little bit too much aggression in this lane from Yuhi and Loser. So I think standing at your own turret, collecting this yes, going down a couple of waves, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Especially when you've got champions in Gnar and Zoe that have kind of flexibility in their play patterns, and the Viego definitely a jungler that can find some stuff to do.
Yeah, and the lanes for V3 aren't terrible either. I mean, Zoe can bully out Victor early because Zoe is more of an early game champion, and Victor actually doesn't get the ability to wave clear his waves until much later on. And in the top side, Gnar often is picked into the GP. You can quite reliably clear those barrels early on when the timer is quite long. You outrange GP to a certain extent because GP has to burn mana to trade with you. So it's really about knowing when to push out to set up for Unica to have that early impact onto the map here. And if anything, I kind of want to see Unica ignore the bot lane a little bit. That's the one lane where even in a 2v3, I'm not sure V3 wins that. So if that's the case, let Dresscode and Hetzel farm onto turret safely here. Just make sure they don't get dove, and instead look to punish Recap on this immobile Victor, which is often going to be spending mana just to push lane out.
Maybe where Unica's opting for, or he could be fighting against Hachimecha. Volibear is not a champion that you want to duel in the early game. Especially with that press, the attack, you've got so much more damage as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Does find a bubble and is going to throw out a paddle start, doing a fair chunk onto Recap, like you mentioned. A bit more of that pressure in the early game.
Good punish there from Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that's one thing, like we said, he's improved massively and has looked like the best performing player on this V3 roster. But Middle God, I was just laughing earlier watching Hachimecha and Unica go at it. The fact that when Unica went into, you know, the miss there, Hachimecha dropped vision and actually stood still for a second. I think just the targeting in the game and the way Unica missed the spectral maul as well, was just like, okay.
The best one there,
junglers.
The best one is spamming attack move when someone is going in and out of vision, because your character model just kind of goes all over the place. Hachimecha securing that topside scuttle, will walk through vision, so V3 do know that he's moving towards these Krugs. Might need to protect Ino in a few minutes, as that GP pretty low on mana.
Yeah, and good read from Soul and Secret there as well, knowing that, okay, our top side is protected. Hachimecha has gone up there. We need to now protect Soul and Secret, who are pushing out with this aggressive Nami Lucian bot lane, and they can continue pushing, but the fact they're not is because, you know, they're worried that Unica might be in the area, could potentially look for a bit of a bush gank here, and that buys Dresscode and Hetzel a bit more time to farm up, which they've done a great job of doing this far.
I was just going to say that. Actually, CS lead for the Aphelios and has only burnt one pot as well. So Dresscode and Hetzel managing just fine. Actually looking for an aggressive play with this hook onto Sol, who can turn it around with the double shots. It ends up being a fairly even HP trade. That's rude, man. No, you deserve to take a tower shot for that.
Hey, that's how you're supposed to play the Zoe, right? Bully out the Victor. Don't let him go back to base. And Recap is running out of mana here. Can't even really shove this wave. So well played from Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. You're pretty much going to force the TP out of Recap pretty easily here. Now, the big question to me still is the junglers thus far. Generally, as a Volibear, you do want to gank at least once before your second full clear. In fact, some junglers might argue that if you have full clearing, you probably played the Volibear wrong. And so far, Hachimecha hasn't been able to find anything here. Unica, on the other hand, going to be more than happy to sit back and farm till that level 6 when you get the execute, and then you start to get a lot more active with the setup from your lanes.
Now, something that's intriguing me as well is how these teams are going to play around the Drake, because it has been on the Rift for a little while, and just sort of conceptually, Volibear, Lucian, Nami sounds like a bot side that should win basically any engagement around that objective. So I am surprised that Rascal Jesters haven't put as much priority on that Drake as they could have done.
Well, for one, Middle Caught, they haven't been winning the bot lane.
No, they haven't, no.
Which is really odd when you think about it, because we laud Soul and Secret so much as such a strong bot lane, but let's remember that a lot of their success tends to come from scaling champions. You know, picks like the Jinx, the Xayah, the Aphelios we saw last split. In terms of early game, we don't see that very often. So we had questions on, can this Lucian Nami put down sufficient pressure? And for now, the answer looks like no. V3 continue to have a really solid early game, and they're the ones who are actually going to pick up this first drag and potentially even rotate to contest that first herald.
I mean, that was smart from Ino there, anticipating that the rotation could come through, getting a couple of deep wards, not particularly deep, a couple of wards into V3's jungle. But yeah, we've still got a minute until that herald spawns, so we could very well see Dresscode and Hetzel go for a little bit of a shove in this bot lane and then rotate towards the top side of the map, try and double dip on the early game objectives.
And I'm going to say what I said last game as well. I don't think that V3 should really full-on contest this Herald. Leave dress code in that bot side. Your win con is kind of getting to that, or is getting dress code into that team fighting monster that Aphelios can be here. Worst comes to worst, just delay the Herald take as long as you possibly can there. And if you're going to go for that Herald, just send Hetel up. I think that's fine enough here.
Well, I mean, we're sort of seeing that as Jesco is just holding the wave, making sure that it is going to push slowly towards them, maybe try and generate a freeze here. But I am surprised that Soul and Secret haven't been playing this matchup as aggressively as they could have done, because Lucian Nami, whilst it's still strong in the later stages, you do need to snowball a bit more than they are.
And the fact that Hetel can just stand in a bush and kind of zone out Soul and Secret right now is not a good look. And now that Hachimicha just hit 6 as well, I think it's time for Rascal Jesters to try and change that a little bit. Potentially look for a dive onto this bot side. You've got Vision top lane. If you ever see Unica show up anywhere in the bot side, I want to see Hachimicha just immediately rush down there, match it, and look for a turret dive.
I mean, because you've got the cannon barrage from Ino as well, who's been doing pretty well into this Gnar in the top side. Was up about 10 CS, and as this wave is going to get shoved in by the Gnar, should equalize that up. So doing well in a matchup that maybe should have been pressurized in a little bit more. And that's a really good sign later into this game that this GP is going to have a bit more space.
Yeah, for now, though, interesting. I don't think they actually have vision on Unica, but we're seeing missing pings actually come down onto the red buff there. So I'm not sure if Rascal Jesters just have a really good read on where this Viego is, but if they do truly know that,
the hook! Through the minion wave, into the knockup as well. The exhaust is going to buy Soul some time, but the flash commits that come through from V3 secure them first blood.
Cannon Barrage cutting them off behind as well. Doesn't do diddly squat for Soul and Secret, though. And I was just thinking here, middle court, that, okay, if you know Unica's there, you play this safe, you can punish with Hachimicha. But instead, no, V3 finding that one here gives them the priority. And this actually should be a signal for V3 to say, okay, let's look at this Herald, right? We've got that advantage. We've got that kill here.
Yeah, and this is how it started off. This was an absolutely wonderful hook from Hetel, just waiting for that caster minion to die. Throws out the dredge line, catching Soul completely by its surprise.
Yeah, and that's disrespect from Soul as well, right? You've got to be tracking that minion wave. And you could see the way he was like kind of stepping up a little bit. He was daring them to throw that hook. But the moment that minion drops, and it dropped for a good half a second to a second, and Soul was just still dancing there. You can't afford to do that, mate. You've got minions. Use them or you die.
Another bubble landing onto Recap in the mid lane. Ignite is going to be dropped from Ayujo. And I think if it wasn't for Secret and Hachimicha making their way over, we could have been seeing a solo kill from that V3 mid laner. Another advantage gained in that fight actually was that cannon barrage commit. Still half the cooldown left on that, and that means that Unica can start up this Rift Herald without anyone really getting in his way. Washidai not quite able to secure the stun onto Ino there, but it's good to see that he's trading a bit more aggressively with the Gnar.
Yeah, really good orange from Ino to immediately cleanse the stun because he couldn't cleanse the knockup. Now Hachimicha finally going down to this bot lane like we call, you know that you lost the Herald. You know that, well, there's no point being topside anymore. And Hachimicha just walks away. Middle court, Hachimicha has not gotten a single gank off so far. I don't count that poking your head into the mid lane a gank. Nothing happened there. There really was no potential. Ayujo still has flash up and available. Level 7 Volibear a single gank is not the reason why you pick this champion.
Absolutely. Do need to be careful, though. I think in the 3v3, with Hachimicha and this bot lane, you'd still have to favor them because the base damages are just too high, but the window that Rascal Jester can play around the bottom side of the map is slowly closing. And it is going to start to be a bit more on Recap, a bit more on Ino to be the carries for this side. Luden's Echo now completed for the victory is going to give them a lot more ability to gain priority, especially in this mid wave.
Yeah, and Recap now should be able to start clearing waves. This is where Zoe starts to struggle a little bit when your enemy mid laner can actually wave clear and push faster than you can, and suddenly Ayujo won't have the ability to roam out to assist the side waves quite as much here. Rascal Jesters, I like that they're kind of going for this dragon. They've been falling behind in tempo here. This time, the moment dragon spawns, they're onto it. And my question is a little bit for V3 as well here, in that if you're going to give this dragon up for free, what are you going to do with this advantage? You can't even really dive Ino right now. Ino just TP'd back into lane, is full health. they're kind of looking for it, but look at that level discrepancy. If Unica gets hit by a barrel from a Trinity Force GP here, that dive goes south immediately.
Yeah, Yujo is making his way over as well, though, so
Okay.
could help
That's
out this
doable.
dive. No TP available for recap. I know is all on his lonesome, thrown into the ball, but the skill shots go wide, the flash away. Washidai tanking up the tower. It's not going to matter in the
Okay.
end, but that could have been a
Recap.
hell of a lot cleaner. Recap does make the roam over. Secret doesn't want to do anything to take away that kill. The flash maybe a little bit over-aggressive there from the Rascal Jester mid laner, but hey, you're on the board.
True. I think they're just kind of worried that, okay, if Washide goes Binny, might be able to start running away, getting over walls and stuff, and then Secret will have to secure the kill. But that's why I said that top dive is not safe. Even with a Yu-Gi-Oh going up, they didn't land the paddle star. They just didn't have enough damage. Washide took so much on the way out, and not to mention just how long the dive ended up taking allows Rascal Jesters to answer back. And now Hachamicha looking to answer on the other side. Come on, Hachamicha. Come on, man. I keep hyping you up. You've got this ball bear. You've got the ultimate. Just dive, buddy.
Yeah, not gonna go for it. Hit by a bubble instead. I do want to call out this Herald in Unica's inventory. Has been sat on that one for a fair while. Gonna need to throw it down soon if you still want to take out some plates. You're not quite able to find that paddle star, but with the Mythic completed, the Luden's Tempest now for this Zoe, one-shots are becoming pretty realistic.
Yeah, I think 2 CP Trouble Bubbles will net a kill solo. And if Unica's anywhere nearby with that Heartseeker, can probably execute. Oh, Hachamicha actually steals that one away here.
Red buff on the Volibear, great. But it's not a gank, which is what we've been asking for. 14 minutes on the clock. Those turret plates have now fallen away, so Unica not going to be getting the maximum value out of this Herald, but still should be able to secure a decent bit of pressure here. Oh, those bubbles are looking magnetic at points.
Yeah, Yujo, like we said, has looked much better this split, and I thought the Zoe was probably his weakest performance thus far, back on day one. Looking much, much better right now. The problem, though, is that Yujo still hasn't found any kills, and as much as you're kind of landing them on Recap's just been farming up a storm anyways. Granted, has had to use the TP quite a few times to get back into lane, but what matters is the fact that Recap's not falling behind, and Recap will outscale. So unless Yujo can start landing some of these bubbles, which are actually full up on and capitalized, I fear that the Zoe pick is not going to hit its full potential either.
I think just broadly, we need to see more from V3 in these early stages, because RJ do outscale, and it's not like they outscale in a composition that doesn't have a tank line, which some of the teams have been drafting. Hachimecha, whilst he hasn't got a lot of early game action done, with this Frostfire Gauntlet build, he's going to be a little bit tankier, and we know that Volibear can act as that meatball in the mid to later stages of the game. Soul and Secret, whilst they haven't piloted this bot lane perfectly, at least they're going to be picking up first tower.
Okay, I kind of wish that they would toggle the gold a little bit, because I'm curious to see, you know, how much gold exactly Soul has and whether it's significant. Because I often look at a Lucianami lane, kind of like the old Caitlyn lanes with, you know, Lux or Morgana, where if you're not winning early, you're kind of falling behind. Exactly. You're expected to walk out of lane with, you know, 1,000 gold lead at least, pretty much, and turret before 14 minutes. And Soul Secret did not manage to get that turret pre-14 minutes. So they didn't even get most of the plates, I believe, off that turret pre-14 minutes either. So it's less than ideal. And if you look at the team gold as well, middle card, 400 gold difference is negligible at this point. It's like a pair of boots. It's a Duran's item. It really isn't enough.
It's worth very little. Hetzel going to be forced to flash over the wall. Cannon Barrage invested from Rascal Jesters, looking for that fight as Hachimecha takes half his HP from the Trouble Bubble into Paddle Star combo. Rascal Jester not being shy about their intent here, as Ino making his way into the mid lane. Herald appears to be the play, but if these bubbles keep landing, it could be Curtis for them. But no, Hetzel oversteps, he goes too far forward, and Soul is able to punish. Heartbreaker strike away from Unica as the Chaos Storm is chasing him down in his jungle. But a good bubble from Ayujo stops the onslaught of Recap. Rascal Jester finally showing a bit of grit, a bit of determination, showing their teeth, securing that Herald. Washidai still able to trade for a tower in the bot lane, though.
Signs of life. It's still not a gank from Hachamicha, but again, the objectives, right? He stole red buff, you know, now he takes the Herald. Well played from him. And I want to highlight how Hachimicha actually really won them that fight as well. They're body blocking a Yu-Gi-Oh so that the Paddle Star didn't pump out all the damage that it should have onto the target that was slept. Now, Rascal Jesters, they were thinking about going for this dragon. Honestly, they are quite strong, but they've just blown all their ultimates here. So I do think it's a little bit over ambitious. And you look over to V3 here, depth charge still up because Hetel died so early.
So getting pressurized in the mid lane. And I mean, it's second Drake and it's a Cloud Drake. It's not something that you need to be fighting unnecessarily over. I think if V3 get a few of these stacked up and get towards that soul, I think, yes, that's something that Rascal Jesters are going to have to respect. But even then, it's not that we talk about this this Cloud Soul as a big late game winning objective. V3 really wanted that tower, by the way.
Yeah. The fact that Jesco had to Gale Force away there, Yu-Gi-Oh took a turret shot trying to do it. Washi just walked in and secures it. Now, Recap actually not able to answer. So, you know what? For all the hunger that V3 showed for that mid turret, I think it's worth there. Their greed is not going to be punished.
Which is excellent. I think Recap should be able to take down this tower on this next shove. So 2 for 2 in terms of the overall turret score, but crucially V3 holding on to their mid lane tower for the time being does provide you a lot of pressure. But V3 not going to lose their mid laner. Rascal Jester not opting to pull the trigger.
Oh my goodness, Middlecott. V3 is not going to lose their mid laner, but I'm going to lose my mind right now. Again, they get such good setups on the side of Rascal Jester. You've got the composition to force this. And it's even worse that we just watched Harp and Yutapon play Nami Lucian, and Harp got so many great tidal waves. Secret got the cutoff angle. You could have found a Yu-Gi-Oh, or at least forced the flash out. And Hachimicha, sure, you didn't have ult available, but one of the scariest things, you know, was, or used to be, like a Volibear level 3 just run you down. That doesn't change. Anytime you're in a long lane, Volibear can continue to run you down. Just pull the trigger, mate. But instead, this is the problem that has plagued Rascal Jesters thus far this split, is they just seem to keep sitting back and waiting. And I'm not sure what exactly they're waiting for. When you got these situations, pull the trigger. For all V3's faults, that's one thing that they have done well this split, is that they're actively looking for plays.
And I mean, right now, they're absolutely chilling in this game state. Dress code is up 30 CS on a Lucian as Aphelios. That is honestly illegal at this point. Herald is going to be summoned in the mid lane. But your wave is not really that substantial. Once this goes down, I'd be surprised if RJ can actually get this Graviton thrown out just to dissuade the play. And whilst that mid lane tower is low, fundamentally, it's still standing.
Yeah, and maybe Rascal Jesters could be baited into overextending a Yu-Gi-Oh, looking for a pick on the side here. And again, I love this from V3, the fact that they're willing to keep chasing, they're willing to keep punishing, they're willing to keep pushing out here. And Rascal Jesters, you're kiting back, but what are you... what are you waiting for? I feel like you can always turn around and punish, you know, this over aggressive chasing from the side of V3 here. It's very, very even.
Ooh. That dredge line was mighty close from Hetel. I'm not sure if that's a play that you actually wanted to go in on, but it's proactivity nonetheless. We're getting a little bit of a J-Ram as Rascal Jester really want to even up the turret score. And with that shot from Sol, he's going to be able to
there we go.
Goes up with the culling, actually. Proactivity RMC, and it secures a kill for Rascal Jester.
Who would have thought, Middlecott, just pull the trigger and maybe you'll find someone. Great pick off from them, and you can see that they've had the tools for so long to be able to do that. With your composition, with this GP, with this Victor, yes, you are able to kite back, but you look even better when you're moving forward and actually threatening them here. And that's that scaling we were talking about from this GP, from this Victor here. The poke is good. And you mentioned that Rascal Jesters have a tank who can soak poke in the form of Hachimicha. Guess what? V3 don't, because Hetel, as a support, doesn't have enough incoming. Again, went with the Zhonya's Nautilus. Not a best pick necessarily into a very high burst composition here. Doesn't really have a good way to soak up that poke from Victor or GP.
Yeah, and then you've got Unica going for the Divine Sunder, but Viego sort of more of a bruiser, doesn't really have the same ability to tank. And then when Washi dies in Mega Form, he wants to be behind you, essentially. Looking for those flanks, try and get onto the Victor and the GP, who are going to be massive threats on this backline as this game continues.
Yeah, and I'd argue that if your Meganar is your soak tank for poke, you've got problems because you want Meganar, as you pointed out, to be in the backline, to be that engage from your team. Meganar actually really struggles to force engages from the front there. One of the negatives of Megaform is that you're a bit slower than your mini form, so it's very difficult to play or to catch into the enemy team. An early TP from Ino here. I didn't think this Clout Drake was really that important, but Rascal Jesters, they have gone right back to the JRAM.
So they have, RMC. Regardless, still able to get the priority. That barrel chain from, I know, just going a little bit wide. These gravity reels from Recap are pretty important because it means that Iujo can't go quite as far forward as he would necessarily like to, and it means that the poke that RJ can throw out sticks a little bit harder. V3 recognize that walking into this river would probably be a pretty stupid thing to do. They're rotating towards the Baron, ping's going down. I think that would be a bit stupid to start that up as well.
Yeah, and I like this from V3 because I think my biggest criticism of them and their throws have come from being a bit over aggressive and not setting up properly. So I love the respect. Washi die.
Oh, it's the same play. It's the same play. Pull them down. Cannon barrage into the kill.
The same play in the same play. I guess we know why Rascal Jester keeps going back to the JRAM because it works, right? It's a kill every time they look for it here.
That corner of mid lane. That corner of mid lane is just deadly.
It's the smaller half of the mid lane as well. Like, he should be shading into the top side instead. Oh, great bubble from the usual, but you can't follow up on it.
Yeah, because Hachimecha can just stand in the front line. The ultimate has been thrown out there by Hetel to secure a knockup, as that's not the way that you want to see a bear be diving. Hachimecha keeps himself alive. It's been a very cagey game, RMC. I feel like that's the best description for what we've been seeing so far.
It has, and to a very large extent, we kind of expected this coming into this. This is, after all, V3 and Rascal Jesters. Rascal Jesters, not a team known to be particularly proactive or, you know, front-facing for the most part here. So it makes sense that they're kind of cagey. And like I said, I appreciate that V3 as well are not trying to over-rush anything. They're really taking their time with a lot of these plays. They don't want to throw the game. But I am getting a little bit concerned for them because we've seen now that they don't really have a good way to poke out Rascal Jesters in these open situations where there's a lot of space to maneuver here. I think Eugeo has done a great job looking for these picks thus far, but unless there's some sort of follow-up or unless they can get around Hachimecha right now, V3 are sort of falling behind in the poke game.
They lack that next step. That one extra person that could take that bubble and go, yo, we're fighting now. We said before the game that V3 would probably have about 25 minutes where they were allowed to play before Rascal Jester recognized that there was actually stuff that they could do in this game, and that time has now elapsed. RJ are the ones sat with the gold lead, small as it may be, only a couple of thousand. They're perching themselves up in the top half of the map. They're getting some items on their carries, maybe looking to fight soon.
Yep, and are we going to go back to the JRAM here, Middlecott? Rascal Jesters, they're set up mid. They're looking for this right now. And again, bubble lands. And look at Hachimecha's positioning. Doing a great job of being a defensive Volibear. Like, I've repeated myself several times. Volibear is not a generally defensive champion as we think of him. But Hachimecha is desperately trying to change my mind.
Oh, so!
Cannon barrage.
Where's the cannon barrage? Where's the cannon barrage? Where's the cannon barrage? Not going to come through. Maybe the HP on Dresco's just a little bit too much. Quite a cool combo that we've been seeing. But it is now Rascal Jester who are playing like the team with the lead, like the team with the pressure, like the team that was third place in spring. Yes, it's been a little bit shaky. It's been a little bit slower than we would have liked. But now we're really starting to see the cogs turn and them get some more advantages.
I mean, Rascal Jesters, they're the longest average game time this split. They were also the longest average game time last split as well. Even when they are winning, they play slow. So, Middlecott, might as well get comfortable here because if Rascal Jesters are winning this one, I don't think they're going to be winning anytime soon. Baron is up on the table. Dragon coming up in a minute and a half. So there are things for them to push for.
I can't get comfortable, man. I've got a standing desk. I need this game to end quickly, otherwise my legs are going to fall out from underneath me, RMC. I'm not sure that you are quite aware of what is at stake.
You're right, I'm not. I mean, I've got a standing desk too. Right now, you can't see me on camera, but I'm basically doing like squats and exercises. So if you hear my voice is different every once in a while, it's because I'm expecting this to be a long one.
You're squatting? What?
Yeah.
Well, you at the gym or something?
No, I'm at a standing desk, and I've got nothing better to do till Hachimetra decides to dive. Dive.
that's actually
You can
cool.
do it.
I believe in you, Hachimetra. You can go for this dive.
Okay, now the minion wave's been cleared.
Now the minion
Next wave,
well,
it's coming
you
in 10
can't.
seconds.
Yeah, come on. Oh, are you
Oh.
Joe? Oh. Yeah, you don't want to portal jump into melee range of a volley bear. That's a lesson that the V3 mid laner has just learned.
Oh.
Excellent play coming through from RJ, opening up with the culling. And it's Recap who secures the kill. It's still slow. It's still considered, but they're getting stuff, RMC.
True. I was gonna say, you know what? You chunk a Yuzho. You flat out killed Hetel, and even then, they still did not dive the turret. I don't know what it's gonna take, and we might not actually see a dive this game because, as you pointed out, it's still working for Rascal Justice. They're on Baron now. Washide is mega, but he's running out quick. They need to pull the engage if they're looking for it. If not, when he goes mini, they can't even poke. They can't even look at Baron at that point.
Yeah, it becomes absolutely impossible. I was saying that though. Oh, so going over the wall. Are you Joe? Oh, the combo once again. I know, with another kill. Flash away, dash away from Unica, but it's not enough. 2 more picks and maybe we see a Baron.
The critical mistake from V3 there, middle caught. They looked at Baron after watching went mini. You can't afford to do that. You don't have a tank. We already said that before. And for Rascal Jesters, don't fix what ain't broke, right? As much as I hate how slow they're playing it, this culling cannon barrage combo, it's just working so well. And V3 have no answer to it whatsoever. One thing is just their lack of mobility, right? Even Zoe's mobility is kind of fake because her portal jump does bring her back right into the cannon barrage if that is what is dropping down here. So we're seeing, you know, Dresscode, Hetzel, Unica, all of them really struggling to deal with this combo that Rascal Jesters have crafted themselves.
As we see that here in the replay, actually going back to this sort of play around the top side, we see it's the culling into the dive. No cannon barrage here, but Recap's still able to pick up the kill. And whilst Rascal Jester dance around, think around the Baron, V3, they just go a little bit too far forward.
Yeah, and they're doing it without vision as well, I think is the important part, which is very risky into a Victor gangplank. We've already touched on how strong their poke is here. So you can't be doing that. And Soul actually just flashes over this wall with tons of aggression because the minion wave has already shown that, hey, there's only one guy here right now. Nobody else is here, and we can just easily punish with no...
Meanwhile, Hetel's just dead. Recap solo killing the V3 support. The final inner tower goes down in favor of Rascal Jesters as we are about to hit 30 minutes. That big Baron buffed up cannon minion throwing the deeps against the tower as the next wave is going to be escorted through. Hachimetra just empowering that mid lane wave, making sure that there's multiple places of pressure here for Rascal Jester. And V3, they don't think that they can contest this. They have to give up the inhib.
Yeah, that's gone. Well, because Hetel's still not up, right? This is a 4v5 situation because they lost, because they got picked right off the bat there, and they're going to lose multiple inhibitors for it. Hetel is finally back up, but now V3, you can't fight this with the burned up minions coming to your wave, and RJ, they just kind of need to reset, go back, and then go for that top side here. There's really nothing on the map to contest. Even if Dragon comes back up right now, it is literally irrelevant for Rascal Jesters.
Yeah, it would be soul for them, but they could just win the game instead. And I think that Nexus is probably a more important objective than Cloud Soul. Level 17 now for Ino, level 16 for Recap. 3 items completed for both. These late game carries at Rascal Jesters, it took some time, but they are well and truly online. V3, they need to find a miracle fight to keep themselves in this game.
And so far, we've not seen that whatsoever. Even the poke is starting to get nullified. We've seen that Ino can now start tanking those bubbles fairly effectively. You know, you pop that orange, you cleanse immediately here. And for V3, I'm not even sure how you look for this. It's got to be Washide coming in from a very oblique angle here, but where is Washide? He's bot side here with nothing to TP to look for a flank.
Yeah, looking for an angle. But the scaling for Rascal Jester has just been too much. V3, they've not contested any of this. They've been triple inhibbed without even trying to prevent that from happening. And now, as Rascal Jesters are going to be hitting onto the Nexus Towers, finally Hetel goes in, but gets blown up immediately. No time to stopwatch, but time to die. Rascal Jester with 2 kills. Washidai is going to be number 3. as a Yu-Gi-Oh throws out the paddle stars, but it is not enough to save his team. The flash stun from Hachimecha knocks him down, as Dress Code is the last remaining member of V3. Rascal Jester, it looked a little bit slow, it looked a little bit shaky, but they're able to take down V3 and put themselves at 2-2.
Okay, Middle Cotton, with that, the battle of the bottoms have concluded here. You know, we kind of came into this knowing that either V3 would finally break their losing streak, or Rascal Jesters, you know, might be able to regain their confidence a little bit here. So, Rascal Jesters looking much better this game. Still really, really slow early game, but at least this time, they kind of started showing signs of life a little bit in the mid game instead, which is really what we're looking for.
It wasn't a 40-minute game fundamentally, and whilst they
True.
could have shown a bit more of proactivity up until around about the 25-minute mark, once the 25-minute mark hit, it looked really damn good.
Yeah.
So we are going to be jumping onto the desk now, I believe, to chat with J-Real as we break down this game and all of the games which we have watched today.
Here we go, onto the desk, a quick turnaround, very much like this game. We didn't expect it to be like that. We expected a very long game, not meeting their 40-minute quota. But you know what? We're not going to be sad about that. You know, we're not going to be sad that RJ decided to win a game. Admittedly, did a lot of question marks from myself. I felt like the, well, as RMC said many a time, they just need to pull the trigger a little bit faster. You know, it still feels like they're holding back. They're really trying to line up that shot, and they're waiting for their opportune time, but it did finally come. Rascal Jesters there picking up another win there. Do you feel like Rascal Jesters are maybe they're maybe finding some sort of semblance of what they used to be? They're starting to find their loop, or RMC, you still saying that this Rascal Jesters is very far away from their peak?
I still think they're quite far away from their peak. When we think of Rascal Jesters in the playoffs there, they were playing a much faster pace of game. In fact, they were finding early leads at 15. They had a pretty decent goal difference at 15 here, whereas now it's like, what, 400 goal difference? It really isn't noticeable. And again, Rascal Jesters towards the end of last spring, they were decisive. When they saw a win angle, they went for it. This time, it's like they only have one win angle in their head, and they just keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yes.
Does it work? Yes. Is it peak form? Not even close.
Yeah, no, indeed. And for V3, another loss, but admittedly for the V3 fans, a little bit less drama. You know, this one was a little bit more clear-cut. It wasn't as dramatic, wasn't as painful, but it also was expected. You know, Rascal Jesters are, well, at the start of the split, we deemed them to be in the top tier with the Sengokus and the DFM. Maybe some people have changed their decisions on that one, but this wasn't supposed to be V3's game to win, and I think that they still put up an okay performance. You know, they still held off Rascal Jesters for a decent amount of time. They still kept it quite close up until, I'd say, around 22, 25 minutes. Then obviously things started to get a little bit problematic. It did feel like their comp was a little bit stagnant, though. You know, they've gone back to that Zoe, which we have seen from them before, and it does feel like they just play Zoe hits bubble, then we fight. If Zoe doesn't hit the bubble, we do nothing.
Well, I mean, there were a number of times that Yu-Gi-Oh hit the bubble and V3 didn't do anything. I think this is a very, very difficult game to judge either of these teams off of, because I think that the way that V3 compositionally interacted with RJ probably doesn't suit the way that they like to play the game. There is a decent worry in my mind that Rascal Jester weren't able to find any laning leads. I think the fact that Soul and Secret were going even in bot lane is really worrying. And maybe that's something that we can take away from this game, that maybe this bot lane just isn't as good as they have been in the past. I've got no doubt that they are going to reach those highs again. But for the meantime, it's a win for Rascal Jester, but I don't think there's going to be yippies and cheerings and hoorays in the gaming house. I think this is a game that you needed to win.
Yeah, and on the Nami Lucian as well, which we already saw how destructive that can be literally just the game before. So it's definitely not the bringing out the champagne. You know, it's not that kind of win. But a win is a win, and a win is all you need to get those points, and then moving on further through this table. I think they're now 2-2, so getting more into that mid-table, moving away from the V3 standing at the bottom. But with that, that was our last game of the day, and we can go through some of the ones that you didn't miss if you weren't watching a little bit earlier. We kicked off the day with a I'd say the most contested game of the day, to be fair. The Hawks versus CGA, I think this, to be fair, was actually a pretty good start to the day. Middlecourt, maybe you weren't too happy about the result, but all in all, it definitely was a fun game to watch.
Just
Yeah,
rubbing
it
it
was.
in, aren't you?
Yeah, it was. It was a fun game.
Yeah.
I don't know,
yeah.
man. I feel like there's very much two sorts of CGA. There's a CGA that plays proactive in the early game. When Kassin is on Wukong, he can get over walls, he can go in, he can go out, shaking it all about, getting leads for his laners. And then there's a CGA that pick Viego and Ezreal and don't do stuff in the mid in the early game and rely on Hybrid to be absolutely cracked in order to win games. He did 70,000 damage in a game that they lost, and he didn't die whilst he was arcane shifting forward at every moment. This game doesn't make me feel good about CJ as a whole, but it makes me think that Hybrid needs to start like being ranked a little bit higher in terms of the LJL AD carries because Soul's underperforming. I think we've got a new third place best AD carry.
Agreed.
There is potential. There is potential for that one, and I don't know. Maybe the ratings do need to change. Who knows? There's many more reasons, as you said. Sometimes they go in strong, but then sometimes they do the Hokoki and turn it all around, and then they just can't make it work. But on to game 2 of the day, DFM versus Axis. RMC, again, I don't know why I'm picking you guys in this order. I feel like I'm punishing you guys. Like, first I'm going to the CGA fan who lost, and then I'll go to RMC who's Axis fan who lost. But yeah, DFM obviously, sorry, not DFM, Sengoku there, picking up the win against Axis. And I will say it wasn't the worst performance for Axis. I think Axis actually showed that, you know what, they are definitely a team that you have to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and fair enough. I mean, coming into this, Axis just lost to DFM on Wednesday, so it wasn't like Axis fans had huge hopes going against Sengoku, right? And I'm very realistic as an Axis fan. I like the team. I would love to see them do well, but I'm also fully aware that they're not a top 2 team, right? So, like you said, they did decently considering the situation. The part that I'm kind of sad about with Axis right now is that the first 2 games looked great when Megumin could step up and carry. And Wednesday didn't happen. Today again didn't happen. Now that's not on Wednesday you put him on Lissandra. I was like, well, what's he gonna do, right? But today at least you put him on Azir. I liked it better. Props to Sengoku. Jet just played it better. And Jet, I literally told Middle at one point, I think Jet can actually 1v5 this game fairly early on before he went 12-0-1-5. And sure enough, he ends the game pretty much untouched. Like, you just could not lock this man down. And I think Recollect put it best earlier. You just want to see more of Jet's Akali specifically.
Yeah, shout out to people that play Akali. If you are in my ranked games, you will lose to me because I play Fiddlesticks. Therefore, your champion is useless. Just saying, that's the key to success. Any teams that want to take that up, be my guest. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. But on to the next one: Burning Core versus DFM. Another result that we did expect. DFM looking very strong. Burning Core a bit shaky. To be fair, I think it's all fair to say those feelings are still carrying through. Burning Core still feeling a bit shaky. DFM still looking pretty strong. And obviously, last game of the day, Russell Jester versus V3. V3 still looking for that elusive win, but it's not finding themselves just yet. But that is the roundup. Now we finish with the game. And you know what it is? It's mess and impress. Who was your mess? Who was your impress? RMC. We'll start with the messes, and then we'll do the round of the impresses to then leave the stream on a nice note. So RMC, who was your mess for today?
There's
a lot.
Yeah, this is a little hard.
There's options. There's options.
I'm actually not gonna go with what I think was like the worst performing player, but I will say I think the mess for me today was Soul and Secret.
Okay.
Because you get Lucianami and you actually lose lane against Aphelios Nautilus, and not just to any bot lane. This is not, say, Utapon and Harpia playing up against. This is Dresscode and Hetzel. And you lost that lane. I think that was probably my biggest miss of today.
And then for you, Middlecourt, what was your mess of today?
I'd have to probably go Burning Core's draft.
I was going to say very similar.
Burning Core a bit more generally. I think that whilst you'd expect DFM to win this game, I think if we're talking about Burning Core as a sort of tier 2 team, which is where they really slotted in last split, they shouldn't be losing the game in this fashion. So yeah, mess for me, Burning Core.
Yeah, I would very much agree. My mess would also be Burning Core's draft, mainly on the fact that they didn't ban Lucian. That's the main
Yes.
point of it for me. I think that was the main bit that I had a problem with. You didn't ban Lucian Nami and you wanted a Felios. That's just no bueno, no kinder. It's a bit of a problem.
Wait, hold up. If we're gonna say that, Rascal Jester didn't ban Lucian, and V3 gave it over and picked the Felios into it. So if that's your
That is
problem,
also true, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Lucian versus Felios matchup, that is my mess for today. People stop doing that, okay? It's not good. It just doesn't work out,
this one won.
On to the flip side, though, on to the impress side of today, the little bit of a lighter note, the silver lining. RMC, who was your impress for today?
Hybrid, hands down. That guy was absolutely nuts on Ezreal. 505 CS, by the way, by the end of the game. 505 CS. That has probably got to be the record this split. I am trying to confirm that, but I'm 99% sure that 505 CS is the highest we've seen.
And then for you, Middlecourt, who was your mess? Who was your impress today? I'm losing my mind already. There's been so much games today, so much craziness.
It's been a wild one. I'm going to be really boring, Jay. I'm going to say Hybrid as well. I think that he deserves at least 2 impresses because that was how good his Ezreal play was today. You very rarely see Ezreal's fully utilize the kit in terms of using the Arcane Shift to go forward and find poke angles when you know that enemy cooldowns aren't really up, and then using your Arcane Shift and Flash to bait enemies into you. We saw that a couple times, particularly around that Baron fight that CJ won. Honestly, it was everything but the Nexus for Hybrid today because he was phenomenal.
Yeah, and my impress is, maybe controversially, going to go to Blank. I think Blank had a really good game. I think that he was very pivotal in some of those steals, and I think that he had a really good performance in that game, and it really did give his team opportunities, and he obviously had great engages as well. So that's my impress for the day. So clearly game 1 was the one that if you're at home, you should go and watch again. That was a very, very good game. But all in all, that is our show for today, and I will say it's been a good one. It's been a good one for day 4. There's been some more normality. I will say day 3 was hectic as anything.
Yep.
Day 4, a little bit more on the narrative. The book has been rewritten. People are following the tune. We'll see if that remains for day 5. But until then, I've been J-Real. This was Middlecourt. This was RMC. Admittedly, they're on the same side, so I don't know why I did different pointing. But this was the LJL. Join us once again on Sunday. I'll see you in a little bit.